It all started with a simple promise I made to myself: climb every peak in the Cascade Range that I could see from my bedroom window. For years, that had been my ritual, my escape from the noise of city life. I'd seen breathtaking sunrises, weathered surprise blizzards in July, and shared silent moments with mountain goats. I thought I had seen it all. I was wrong. The mountain I chose that weekend was Mount St. Helens. Not the touristy side, but a more remote, challenging route that very few people attempt. The trail was rugged, barely there in some places, which is exactly how I liked it. Solitude was the goal. The first day was perfect. The air was crisp, the sky a brilliant, cloudless blue. I made camp near a glacial stream, the sound of rushing water a soothing lullaby. I felt completely at peace, a tiny but significant part of this vast wilderness. I had no idea that this peace was about to be shattered in the most profound way imaginable. The second day, everything changed. The weather turned without warning. A thick, soupy fog rolled in, swallowing the landscape whole. Visibility dropped to near zero. I've navigated in fog before, but this was different. It was disorienting, suffocating. One wrong step, and I was off the faint trail. I checked my compass, my GPS, but in my growing panic, I must have misread them. I was lost, utterly and completely lost. Hours turned into a day, then another. My food was running low. My water filter broke. I was forced to drink directly from streams, hoping for the best. The cold seeped into my bones, a deep, gnawing chill that my gear couldn't fight off. My ankle, which I'd twisted in a fall, was screaming in protest. I was getting weaker. Despair began to set in, a cold, heavy blanket that was far more dangerous than the fog. I started to think about my family, my friends, the life I might not get back to. I'd always been so self-reliant, so confident in my skills. But out here, I was just a fragile human, humbled by the raw power of nature. On the third night of being lost, I was at my lowest point. Huddled under a rocky overhang, shivering uncontrollably. I had almost given up hope. The search and rescue teams would be looking, I knew, but the area was huge. The weather impossible. I felt my energy draining away, the will to fight fading with the last light. That's when I heard it. It wasn't a bear or a cougar or any animal I could identify. It was a cry. A long, mournful, almost human-like cry that echoed through the canyons. It was filled with a strange mix of power and sorrow, and it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. The sound was unlike anything I had ever heard in all my years in the wilderness. It was deep, resonant, and seemed to come from the very soul of the mountain. My fear was instantly replaced by a primal curiosity. What on earth could make a sound like that? The cry came again, closer this time. It wasn't aggressive. It felt inquisitive. I was terrified, but also strangely compelled. I was too weak to run, too cold to do anything but listen. Then I heard the sound of heavy footsteps. Not the four-legged gait of a bear, but 2 feet, bipedal and heavy. The ground seemed to vibrate with each step. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I clutched my ice axe, a useless gesture against whatever was approaching. Through a small break in the fog, I saw a silhouette. It was massive, taller than any man, broad and powerful, covered in dark, shaggy hair. It stood there, partially obscured by the mist and the ancient firs, just watching me. I was frozen, not with fear anymore, but with sheer, unadulterated awe. My mind was racing, trying to process what my eyes were seeing. It was the creature of legend, the myth my logical mind had always dismissed. It was a Bigfoot. It tilted its head, its large, dark eyes seeming to peer right into my soul. There was no menace in its gaze, only an ancient intelligence, a profound sadness. It took a step closer, and I could smell a musky, earthy scent, like damp soil and pine needles. The creature raised a massive hand, not in a threatening way, but almost as if in greeting. And then it did something I will never forget. It let out another call, but this one was different. It was shorter, more directed. And then, in the distance, I heard an answer. A similar call, but higher in pitch. It was communicating. It looked back at me, then pointed with that huge arm down the ridge into the dense fog. It let out one more soft grunt, then turned and vanished back into the mist as silently as it had appeared. The heavy footsteps faded, leaving only the sound of my own ragged breathing. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my mind reeling. Had I hallucinated it? Was it a symptom of hypothermia, my brain playing tricks on me? But it felt so real. The ground had vibrated. I could still smell that earthy scent, and the direction it pointed. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot I had. Gathering every last ounce of strength, I pushed myself up. My ankle screamed, but the adrenaline from the encounter was a powerful anesthetic. I stumbled in the direction the creature had pointed. It was a brutal, agonizing journey. I fell countless times, crawling more than walking. But I kept its gesture in my mind, a beacon in the disorienting fog. Hours later, just as I was about to collapse for good, the fog began to thin, and then I saw it. A faint glimmer of light. An old, barely used Forest Service cabin I didn't even know existed. It was unlocked. Inside, there was a wood stove, dry kindling, and even a few cans of forgotten food. It was a miracle. It was salvation. I built a fire, warmed my frozen limbs, and ate the most glorious can of cold beans I've ever had in my life. The next morning, the weather cleared, and from the cabin's porch, I could see the main trail less than a mile away. The search party found me that afternoon, drawn by the smoke from my chimney. When they asked how I survived, how I found the cabin, I just said I got lucky. How could I explain what really happened? That I was saved by a myth, a legend. They would have thought I'd lost my mind out there. For a long time, I kept the story to myself, questioning my own sanity. I pored over maps. The cabin wasn't marked on any of them. It was as if it was meant to be found only by someone who was truly lost. But the memory of those intelligent, sad eyes, the echo of that mournful cry, never left me. That encounter in the mountains changed me. It broke down the walls of my skepticism and opened my mind to the possibility that there is so much more to this world than we understand, that there are mysteries hidden in the deep woods, ancient beings who walk silently among us. I don't go into the mountains looking for a repeat encounter. That was a gift, a once-in-a-lifetime moment of grace when I needed it most. But I do go with a new sense of wonder. I look at the vast, unexplored wilderness with a deeper respect. I know now that we are not the only thinking, feeling beings on this planet, and that encounter, as terrifying and unbelievable as it was, didn't just save my life. It made me believe in miracles again. It reminded me that even in our darkest, most hopeless moments, help can come from the most unexpected places. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had an experience you can't explain, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more tales from the wild. Stay safe out there.